All right, welcome back everyone to another super exciting episode of Southern Sorcery. We got a cool version of the sit down today where we're just sitting down with each other, myself and Daniel. Want to discuss some big news in Magic. If you haven't heard about this, you're probably either just not online or living under a rock, but there are some new commander brackets to dictate power levels for commander games to help filter in what you would call high level, everything's a 7 type mentality, and switch gears a little bit into a different bracketing system. Today we're going to be watching Gavin's video where he breaks it down from the Wizards concept and what they were looking at when they were doing this. So yeah, we're doing the thing. Want to give a big shout out to our forever sponsor in Nerd Gear Gaming. Go check them out. Use code Southern for your 5% discounts on top of any sales they're currently running, and they have a ton of stuff. I'm staring right now at my playmat Sanctuary, and it's probably my favorite magic accessory ever, and it doesn't have anything to do with cards, but it's just so well put together and so awesome. It's so good. Yeah, so go check them out, please. Great stuff. You're supporting a good small business in a world where we want to keep our cardboard safe and pimping, because it's exactly what it does. It's great. Daniel, we got some big news. How close are we to our goal
We're
now?
We're getting there. Before we jump into the rest of the video, check it out. We are getting so close to hitting our goal of our 5,000 subscribers. Yeah. We're doing a huge giveaway. If you guys don't care, jump down, hit that subscribe button, help us out, and like this video and give us a comment. But yeah, with that stuff out of the way, we'll go ahead and jump into it. We're not going to subject you guys to all 29 minutes and 59 seconds of this video. We are going to watch it ourselves and react to it, but we'll edit it down for bullet points for you guys. And if we have commentary through the video, we'll dust that in. But then mostly we'll be towards the end of the video. Then we're going to kind of do a reaction to and discussion about what we think about this tier system and how we think that's going to impact the community, good and bad. So yeah, let's just jump into it and see what's what.
Let's go.
Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey for Wizards of the Coast and also of the Commander Format panel. And today I and the panel are very excited to introduce to you the beta test of our new Commander matchmaking system, Commander Brackets.
2 hours later.
So thank you all for taking the time to check this out and for your patience as we put it all together. And I personally want to thank the rest of the CFP for all of their work. They took
wrap that up. Okay, obviously we've seen the graphics before this, but after having watched the video, what are your initial thoughts? What are your first thoughts?
Everything's a 3. Everything's a 7 now. Everything's a 3. No, I kid. I like that they are addressing it, because it's been a pain point, I think, throughout the popularity of Commander, that people can sandbag. And he even addressed it and said, you can't stop liars. Liars are going to lie. But
sure,
now it's really easy to simply call someone out for it, because before there wasn't a specific card. I mean, there was, I guess, sitting at a casual table and someone drops the Smothering Tithe and plays the Mana Crypt and the other stuff. You're just like, come on, man. I thought you said this was a casual deck. But now, you can flat out say, hey, if we're going to use these guidelines and you see one of these cards come out, you instantly know, hey, you sandbagged. So accountability is nice. I like that they're addressing it. The game changer list is odd to me. Some of it makes sense. It's odd. So it's odd to me just because of how short it is, because there's a lot of cards that just float to my mind that are immediately as powerful as some of the stuff that was on the list that wasn't. What about you? What about you?
I think you kind of go back to what are they trying to accomplish here? Does this accomplish that in a way that is meaningful and a way that the community is going to adopt it? I think it depends on a couple of things. One, if you're a casual player and you go to your LGS once a month and you go home and you live your normal life and you build a deck a year, this is going to have zero bearing on your Magic playing experience, unless you happen to sit at a table and someone say, oh, what's your deck? And you say, oh, it's a 7. And then they're like, oh, we don't do that anymore. And then they're like, wait, what? But if you're an online player, or you're a content creator, or you go actively to MagicCon and other things of that nature, I do think that those communities will adopt this. That's just my gut feeling that this will be adopted by the mainstream Magic community, if you want to call it that.
Oh yeah. Totally.
And in that case, I think there's a couple of points, and like he did acknowledge some of it through the video, like, well, 4 and 5 basically being the same thing. There's no restrictions at all on either one. The difference between 4 and 5 is simply the mindset that you're coming into it with. Like, hey, I've got this crazy powerful slivers deck. That's not a viable CEDH strategy to bring us a 5-color slivers to a CEDH table. It's just not fast enough for that meta, for that world. So that's the only difference between 4 and 5 is like some decks, some strategies, some commanders just are not viable for CEDH. However, you can still have a crazy tuned slivers deck. That deck will just, no matter how much money you pour into it, no matter how many cards you put into it, it's still just never going to be able to compete with whatever's at the top of the CEDH as like a meta. There is a difference, but it's a very small one. I also will say I didn't have any idea that Exhibition was like a level people played at below pre-cons. I just have personally never encountered that or met anyone who was like, that was their jam. So that's interesting, I think, that there is like a, like, hey, this is as janky as I can build it type of decks. This deck does nothing. It just is.
Yeah, I mean, you play against like group hug decks, and
I guess that could fall into that category. Yeah, just like
I would.
This is totally for flavor.
Yeah, like that's how I not that it's exhibition level, but like that Ren and Siri deck that I made where I've got like
but it's still pretty
things,
good.
but it's still good.
You're right. It's not
it's not
optimized at all. It's like there are absolutely cards in there for just flavor.
Yeah, I think a lot of Commander players, you play Commander long enough, you will build a just silly deck because you spent years just building optimized stuff. You spent years building like thematic stuff that's typal, that's based around a tribe. You just built it all, so you get to a point where you're like, I'm building something silly, like, because I've just done it all prior to this. Like nothing's exciting anymore. So you kind of go through phases as a Commander player, like almost like a cycle. And
I could see that.
Yeah, and like, but yeah, you're right. I mean, you don't see it often because most people do want to like have something to win with, but like you do see the silly decks every once in a while, like the.
There's no win con. I'm here for I'm just here for the I'm here for the vibes. I'm here to just hang out. I don't want to have to pay attention to the game that much. Like, but so I think it's interesting for it to be being like recognized as like a meta, like as like, oh, there's an audience that like this is all they want to do. Although it may be more what you're saying, where it's like, well, no, that's not the only thing I want to do. I just want to be able to do this thing from time to time. And so I have a deck that is in that space.
Exactly.
But yeah, to chime in on what you were saying about the list, Game Changers, I do feel like that's an interesting list. I think it's interesting that they specifically call out tutors in the brackets, but then they specifically call out certain tutors in the Game Changers list and not others. Yeah, notably, like you said, Gamble, Worldly Tutor. Those are both 1-drop tutors. Gamble goes and gets anything, doesn't it? And then Creatures with Worldly Tutor.
Yeah, my thought behind it, since we just said it, looking at the other ones, is like Creatures are the easiest to remove. So maybe that was their thinking, is like, okay, you go get a creature, put it on top, with Worldly Tutor. Even though you're doing it instant speed, so at the end of someone's turn, you can draw it, but like it can be countered, or if it resolves, it can be like, destroyed. And then Gamble, obviously, probably the biggest drawback is one, it's at sorcery speed, and two, you have to pitch a card, and you potentially are pitching the card that you went and tutored for. So maybe that's why those were excluded. Whereas like enchantments and artifacts for Enlightened, instant sorceries for mystical, and then anything with vamp and demonic, like I totally get maybe like I mean, I would almost probably rank them as such because of that, but it's still like a tutor's a tutor at the end of the day. If like you're playing a creature heavy deck and like you go tutor for the win con, like that tutor's just as strong if you're playing a combo deck and you tutor for the piece that combos off almost. So that was, I agree with you, it was kind of, Worldly Tutor at the very least was odd not to see on that list.
Yeah, I just think it's a little inconsistent. That's just my personal view. I also think it's interesting to include tutor restrictions in a redundant way. Yeah, I get that Demonic Tutor can be the game changer, but technically Demonic Tutor isn't the game changer. It's whatever you went and got with the Demonic Tutor. You know what I mean? So it's like having the restrictions on tutors in the brackets, and then redundantly having restrictions on tutors in the game changers, I just thought that was weird. I also thought they talked about some specific cards that were like, yeah, if you cast Expropriate, typically that's a game finisher. And it's like, so Crater Hoof, Achroma's Will, those are also not like game enders. I guess the thought process there is that like to pay those off, you really need like a wide board state and to almost already like be the threat, if not like maybe someone is edging you out, but if you've got like 6 creatures and you cast a Crater Hoof, depending on how big, if they're 1/1s, then like, okay, it's not that great, but you still take somebody like, and Achroma's Will similarly, like, hey, I'm gonna just gain 50 or 60 life and do all this damage, and like, I don't know how you leave those off of a list like this when you're talking about some of these others.
It looks like, based on the list, that to me, how they went about it is saying like every one of these cards that I've seen thus far are just good by themselves. I mean, excluding the tutors because they're just finding stuff. But like, if you just cast Crater Hoof by itself, it's terrible. If you just cast Achroma's Will by itself, it's terrible. But if you just cast Appropriate by itself, I mean, that's all it needs. It just needs that to go off, and you potentially could win the game.
You should
get a massive payoff. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah, but
there's other stuff. Well, there are the extra turn spell that lets you take 2 extra turns. That to me, like 2 extra turns. I mean, that is also pretty. Like, hey, I'm taking this turn I'm on right now. I'm gonna take 2 more after that. Like if you can't close it out, like I mean, like if you can't close it out with 3 consecutive turns, I don't know. I mean, I definitely think there's room for this list to grow, and at the same time, like there's some of the stuff on here that, like Ancient Tomb, to me is not, like they said Soul Ring, and it's like, I get that you don't want to put Soul Ring on the list, but the explanation can't just be that it's Soul Ring. You know what I mean? Like,
well, he even alluded to it as like, it's almost like a rite of passage, because everyone always in every time of Commander has been able to play a Soul Ring. And then, I mean, truthfully, I don't know how like PC they can be with it when they come out and they're represented by Magic, just to come out and say, hey, we printed a lot of precons with Soul Ring in the past, and like, maybe they won't sell as well if we.
Yeah, I definitely feel like their hands are tied, and they're like, and that's that's the explanation. They're just not saying it, but it's just like
it's almost
wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, hey, man, we can't stop. Like, this train has left the station. There's nothing to do.
Exactly. Yeah, man. The virus has spread. Like, it's it is what it is now.
The computers are infected. Yeah, it's too late to walk that one back.
The Soul Ring fever has taken hold of everybody. Like. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is funny.
I think that's, like you said, I think their hands are tied. It just, I can't ever see it being banned. I can't ever see it. It just, it's just almost like it almost like is Commander now. Like, that card's so ingrained, it's just like, it'd be impossible to like uproot it, but, I did like his emphasis on like Rule Zero and like at home games, like, because I feel like a lot of those people feel attacked sometimes when these changes come.
Sure.
That Magic's just going to send people into their homes to like
send in the
like a SWAT team, like like send in the like, what are you doing? Like, you can't play these cards, they're banned. It's like, no, man, it's like, it's cool. Like, if you have that community and you have that like. That keep it, do whatever you're doing the thing, you're doing the Magic, like the gathering part of it, right? So like, no, keep doing what you're doing. So I like that emphasis there. It's like, I know it feels bad when a card gets banned, but like, you necessarily don't have to follow like a ban list or a rules list if you've got that establishment, of your own house rules and stuff. So I like that, at least that they're recognizing that, as opposed to like disregarding the everyday Commander player. But
speaking of Rule Zero, what do you think about the level 3 being able to have the 3 game changer cards? He said they were open to elevating that number potentially. What are your thoughts on that?
I liked level 3. I kid, when we first started talking about our synopsis of everything. Everything's a 3, but that is the lane where everybody wants to. I think not everybody, but that's the majority of your players will live in that world. Like, I want to throw a couple spicy things. 3 is the new 7. Yeah. I love what he said though about like, our intention here is that a 3 can't play against a 4. It's a 2 against a 4.
I agree.
That part I thought they they nailed on the head. Like, that's exactly what should be, I think, stopped. That's a lot. Like, if you're a new player, you got a 2 or a 1, and someone sits down at the table with a 4 or a 5, and they just like smack you. Like, it just sucks, and like it puts a bad taste in your mouth, and like you just don't want to play Magic again because you think that's the environment. So like, as much as we can stop that, I think it should be, because like, shame on you if you are that person that sits down at the table and knows everyone's playing the weakest deck they can, and you bust out your like, you don't do that. Like, be better. If you're out there and that's you, like, just don't do that anymore. Like, if because you didn't win that bad, like,
you for sure can have a 4 and not have a single game changer. There's only 40 game changers, and like we were talking about, there's lots of other cards out there. Craterhoof, Chroma's Will, things like
Moonshaker Cavalry,
massive ramp. Like, there's tons of great ramp, but you're talking about things like, burgeoning, and like there are other oppressive cards out there. You've got things like Coma, and like none of that falls into the game changers. And I mean, they've got Turgid on there. Like, okay, that's a kill on sight commander, but there are dozens and dozens of kill on sight commanders that are not on this game changers. So you're right. It is more of a Rule 0 conversation that still needs to take place. I don't think anyone is suggesting that, like, we'll just make a system that's going to eradicate errata, walk back. Like, there's no need for Rule 0. There's always going to be there's 20 some odd thousand cards that can be played in Commander. There's always going to need to be a Rule 0. Mass land destruction was mentioned. I don't really see any stacks pieces in the game changers. None, like the orbs, all the spheres. Like, there are absolutely Grand Arbiter Augustin is probably the only like stacks piece that's in the game changers list. Maybe Jinja Taxis is considered because you make everyone have no hand size. But as far as like when you talk about stacks as a theme for a deck, like a lot of those cards aren't even considered here. And so it's like, okay, technically I could build a stacks deck that would fall into like a 2. Like, that's not a 2.
Yeah.
And also, shame on you. No mana for you, stacks players.
Everyone deserves mana except stacks players. Except stacks players. Yeah, I agree. There's so many. I thought about my Perforos deck. Well, I thought about how little, like, there was only 2 red cards in the game changers list.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and Perf is disgusting.
And Perf, like, honestly, like, aside from a couple of the rocks that they mentioned, like the fast rocks, like, I could take those out easily and just add, and he would be just as mean. Like, all right, so you're telling me Perf's a 2? Like, Rule 0 definitely is still like very viable.
Yeah.
You can't, I don't think this could be the end all be all, and this is why they're beta testing, I'm sure, to see like what they might have missed and what probably needs to be readdressed and changed. I could totally see some cards falling off the list too. Like,
sure.
Honestly, like, seeing Urza on the list, like, I know Urza is very abusive as a commander, or he can be. It really just depends on how you build Urza. Like, if you build Urza as a stacks commander, like, that was the one of the command, like the legendary cards they listed in that I was like, I could easily see, because he's no longer like in the CDH meta. Like, there's probably some Urza decks still out there that can definitely like sit down and do some things, but like, and I guess he could fall in the 4 if that's the process they're looking at. But that was just the one example that I saw that I was like, I could totally see like cards kind of coming and going from this list, like, just like he said, like updates. I tell you what I was most excited about was just the news of like things becoming unbanned and then falling into this list. Like, that was
I agree with that,
because that just, like, I mean, I'll say it right now, like, Jeweled Lotus needs to be unbanned yesterday. Like, it's for Commander. It's, like, it should never been banned. Like, I'll die on that hill. I'm that guy that, I'm kicking and screaming. But
well, especially with a system like this in place that has this list of game changers, you just put Jeweled Lotus on this list. Like,
absolutely,
very simple.
Absolutely, yeah. Let it be in CDH, let it be in 4s,
and it will be. I think it will absolutely be unbanned in. I would say in April. Whenever they were talking about unbannings in April, I would say it's coming.
It spoke to me in my bones when he said that. I was like, yeah, Jeweled Lotus is coming back, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I think so. I would almost need to pick up one.
I bet the house on it. If you take the Vegas odds right now, or the insider scoop right here from Southern Sorcery.
We are no, we are not. We're not going to speculate. We are here for purely entertainment. Do not buy anything based on what we've said. I think that the only other thing I don't like about like the number of game changers is like, what's the likelihood that you see one of those 3 cards in your deck of 100 cards, unless it's the commander. You could literally go games without ever seeing one of those cards. So it's not like you just take a precon completely unedited and just like put in your Smothering Tithe, put in your Heuristic Study, and put in a tutor, and like, okay, my deck is a 3. Like, chances are it's probably still a 2. Just like if you happen to draw and play that card and it sticks around, then you would maybe that game it played at a high. But he kind of talked about it in the Q&A part was mana base. And to me, you can take a precon and just simply upgrade the mana base, and that alone will take it from being a 2 and make it a 3, potentially, because so many of the precons come in with so many tapped lands, and having untapped lands versus tapped lands is like, I mean, that potentially changes your deck from doing something on turn 9 to like doing something on turn 5.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, that is, I kind of disagree in some regards, because like, let's say I took every deck that I own and I proxied all 10 of the dual lands, and I proxied all 10 of the fetches. You know, if I'm playing Wooburg, if I'm playing whatever colors I'm in, I have nothing but dual lands and nothing but fetches. Like, that would exponentially make your deck better, I think, and faster.
Yeah.
Like, no, because no longer you have, like, you know, like shock lands, like, okay, I don't have to pay the 2 life anymore. They don't come in tapped. They fix my mana immediately. That was a little surprising that they didn't. I mean, and that's probably a hard task. I'd say that's probably a whole undertaking by itself, is to look at the land
right, because they
base
can't put command tower on the game changers, right?
Right.
Like,
because that's not a game changer. It's just a good land, right?
it's just a really good land.
Yeah. So that one would be tough. I would say, like, subjectively, it would be very hard to, like, you know, outside of like just looking at CDH lists and seeing like, okay, these are the common themes of lands, so these are probably like quote unquote the game changer lands. And even then, that's subjective to the deck it's running in. So
no, that's the kind of thing is like they both can affect each other. Like if you completely mana fix a precon, you're vastly upgrading that. But at the same time, if you if you took a 4 and you downgraded that, if you went on like a budget land base, you are like you are drastically decreasing, even with like good cards in the 99 and a good commander. Without a good mana base, it's like you've lowered that deck a tier at least. It all kind of comes back to rule 0. So to sort of round it out, like what is your overall just conclusion, your thoughts, impact, like what do you see this doing ultimately?
Just final thoughts on this for me. I actually like it a lot. I do appreciate where it's coming from, because there was a need for the change. I think what it's going to do is it's going to put a focus on, I think, exactly what he said, like the convention scene, and like what you alluded to, the content creator scene, the active player scene. It's going to draw attention to those 40 cards, in an odd way. I don't know what it's going to do to them, like price wise or playability, what's going to change. Like, I don't know. Like it's like it's beta testing. So we'll see like what it does to the market. But but I think they'll get a lot of good feedback from, Chicago, MagicCon Chicago is where it'll be, I think that'll be like ground zero for this,
I think so too.
Like live checking. But I think ultimately, like my final thought on it is like good on them for doing this, because there was a cry for help for some cards that got banned, and there was a cry for help for the players at tables playing against unfair decks, and I think they are trying to address both of those. And I think that's really all we can ask for when we're from Wizards themselves. So right. I like the fact that that's where it's going. Yeah. What about you? What are your final takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, do I think this really is going to change much as far as, like I said, kind of talked about earlier, like the casual player who like plays at their kitchen table occasionally with some buddies, or goes to the LGS once a month or so. I don't think it changes much for those people. I think the ultimate goal is to have a more open dialogue with more definable parameters than just like, well, what is a 7? Like, well, my 7 is this. Well, my 7 is this. So I do think it helps set some definitions of like what things are, and very specifically having certain cards be a part of that list, I do think is helpful. I think the list is a little skinny right now. I think more cards will be added to it as time goes on, because like we were saying, like if you just took 3 cards and put it in precon, and you say, oh, it's a lightly upgraded precon, but the cards you put in was Bolas's Citadel. Oh, I put in the Thassa's Oracle as a win. Like, okay, well, that drastically changes it from being a precon. So I do think having that list of very specific cards helps, because then someone is inevitably going to say, oh, what 3 game changers are in your 3? And then you can say Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, and this other tutor. And it's like, oh, that's it? Like, okay, that seems cool. But then you come back with again like a Bolas's Citadel or Expropriate and something else, and it's like, oh, okay, those are, I need to counter those. They don't need to enter the battlefield. They need to be gone as quickly. So I do think it's beneficial. But again, even at a rule 0, you can only weed out the people that are there to play in a fair way. Like the people that don't want to play fair and just want to like try to curb stomp and win, that's just still going to happen. You can't stop people from lying, which was said in the video too. So it is a good faith system as well, which just be better, people. And if you end up playing with someone in a casual pod and that ends up not being the case, you just say, hey, we don't we just don't want to play another round with you, man. Like, we'll just pick up a new 4th. Like, thanks, but no thanks. So you can only do what you can do.
You can, People are gonna lie. It's any game. When someone wants to win bad enough, it's just it is what it is. Like, but I agree. It's a beginning. I think, to addressing a lot of things that have been a far cry for help. So I'm here for it. I like it. Plus, especially the unbanned. I'll end it with that. Especially the unbanned list. Like that's.
Well, that was actually. I do have a follow up question, even to the conclusion. Here's my follow up question: is okay. What's your tinfoil hat theory? Like, speaking of unbans, what's your tinfoil hat theory? What's the underlying underbelly of Wizards doing this just for fun?
Yeah. So I obviously there was huge news months back, Crypt, Lotus, Dockside getting banned, Nadu as well, but Nadu not so much. But those were like shockers, like
right.
That was the first
hadn't been discussed,
ban.
Wasn't out in the open, wasn't really like on the chopping block. Yeah. Just like, oh wait, what?
Yeah, and then the community reacted poorly. I will say that death threats and stuff. Like, come on, people, this is a cardboard game. Be better.
yeah, be better.
And so, they had to take a step back, so far back that they had to like give the reins to Wizards, which had never been done before. So the commander committee had to like basically dissolve, I'm assuming, and now it's just under the Wizards, jurisdiction. So I think, tinfoil hat here is they are going to. This is hypothetical. This
is all pure speculation. Yeah. This is just like this is 100% just speculation.
And I'll also caveat this, asterisk this. I also want this to happen. I think that they're going to rip the Band-Aid off of what was banned. And they probably won't go this far. I would want to see everything just get unbanned.
Same.
And then they could now
start
let's reassess.
Rebanning.
Let's unban it all. Let's unban it all. Let's see what it does, and now let's reban based on performances in metas for CDH, for generalized gameplay.
Agreed.
Or now it turns out this card is okay. It doesn't need to be banned after all. Right. It just needs to go on the game changers list. That's my tinfoil hat theory. I think that's what they should do. That's maybe I'm speculating that they are going to do that. But that'd be awesome in my opinion.
I don't think they will, but that was what I was going to say too, is just like unban literally everything that is actually playable in the Commander format. So obviously not the stuff where you like crumple up people's cards and like rip stuff in half and like
those
sorts of
those kinds of things.
But anything that like could could be played in Commander and Tolarian Academy, Hull Breacher, like just everything that's been banned up to this point that would still function in Commander, unban it all.
Yep.
I don't think they will do that. I don't think they'll do that,
No.
but I think what I think they actually might do, and this would be savvy of them to do, is unban a few of these cards at a time. And then in the next 6 months, you'll see a reprint of those cards. And then the next unbanning will happen. And then in the next 6 months, you'll see a reprinting of those cards. From a financial point of view, that would be really smart of them to do. Although with banned cards, a lot of them are still on the market. But if they become unbanned, they will get gobbled up and skyrocket. I mean, like Tolarian Academy. How much would Tolarian Academy cost if it was unbanned? You know, like $1,500.
Double what a cradle is.
Yeah.
Double.
Yeah, because it would just be so good.
Because it is, I mean, with the amount of treasures and stuff, I could go on a wormhole of like how good a Tolarian Academy would be, which is probably why it will never be unbanned.
Probably not. That's sad. But potentially, you put it on the Game Changers list.
Absolutely.
You can't play it in a 3.
And everybody starts running wastelands and strip mines and land spot removal. So there's ways around it. There's there's an answer in Magic for everything. So
I mean, a generous gift gets rid of it. A beast within gets rid of it. Like there's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So tinfoil theory would be the unban a little at a time and then reprint it within 6 months, like that. From a financial point of view, if I was a company and my cards had been banned not necessarily against my will, but like without my, granted they don't own the format, they didn't make the format, but all that to just say they have the control now. If it came back to me, I think that would be the move from a business point of view. How the community would respond to that, I don't have any idea.
Yeah, so I guess some of it, like Tolarian Academy, for instance, or some of the other cards, they're on the reserve list too. So like they couldn't
some of them can't get reprinted, right? Yeah, but like Hull Breacher, like that's like a $2 card right now. That would absolutely skyrocket. I mean, I don't think it goes into hundreds of dollars, but $30.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was 30. I remember at the height, it was like a $30 to $40 card. Yeah.
Yeah, so then you just turn around and reprint. You just would reprint.
And you could totally reprint it. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a fun breakdown, or a sit down rather, just to talk with Daniel. And this is fun. This directly affects our community, the game we love. So it's always fun to talk about this stuff. It's exciting. So please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know if we're talking out of our heads about something, or if we missed a conversation piece. It's very interesting stuff. So we love to hear your feedback. So. Drop us a comment. Check out all the links below for all the stuff we mentioned earlier in the channel about our about Nerd Gear, the Patreon, and all that good stuff. On our way to 5K, so please like and subscribe as well. We would really appreciate that. It's a free way to help us out. Yeah. Until next time. Thanks again. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.